In the last 25 years or so, the term gospel-centered has become synonymous with a renewed emphasis in evangelicalism on church planting. And that's a good thing. New churches started branding themselves as gospel-centered. They sing gospel-centered songs and have gospel-centered discipleship, and there's nothing wrong with that term. However, we fear that it might merely become a tagline. So here's our challenge. We sincerely hope that the gospel is at the center of all that we do at Christ Fellowship, but we hesitate to call ourselves a gospel-centered church. Instead, when we're talking about our core values, here's how we've chosen to define our core value of gospel. We say this: we aren't gospel-centered in name only, but commit to making the gospel a priority in every ministry that God calls us to. We believe that Jesus truly changes everything, and the story of his perfect life, sacrificial death, and miraculous resurrection will be central to all that we do as a church. So instead of gospel-centered as a tagline, we simply want everything that we do to be saturated with, animated by, and built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ. Pastor Ray Ortlund says that gospel doctrine, or what we believe about the gospel, will produce gospel culture within a church. Gospel doctrine without gospel culture is hypocritical. Gospel culture without gospel doctrine is fragile. And gospel doctrine producing gospel culture, well, that's powerful. This following quote defines what we want to see at Christ Fellowship. One cannot explain the explosive dynamite, the dunamis of the early church, apart from the fact that they practiced two things simultaneously: orthodoxy of doctrine and orthodoxy of community in the midst of the visible church, a community which the world could see. By the grace of God, therefore, the church must be known simultaneously for its purity of doctrine and the reality of its community. Our churches have so often only been preaching points with very little emphasis on community. But exhibition of the love of God in practice is beautiful and must be there. That quote was by Francis Schaeffer. Not only does it matter what we believe and preach and teach, it matters that our community and how we relate to each other in the context of that community is a result of the content of our messages. Our beliefs inform our practice. Our doctrine shapes our community. We are a community at Christ Fellowship that is formed by the gospel. Therefore, our culture, our DNA, is the gospel. We're not gospel-centered. We're gospel-dependent. We're gospel-saturated.